Pyongyang just launched multiple suspected ballistics into the sea. Seoul's got telemetry locked, Tokyo's in standby. That's 8 launches in 30 days. They're accelerating, and we're tracking it. North Korea just launched multiple short-range ballistics into the East Sea. That's 9 in April alone. Seoul's got telemetry locked, and they're showing 0 signs of stopping. Pyongyang just sent 7 more into the EC. That's their 4th launch this April alone. Seoul's locked telemetry, Tokyo's watching. Copy? Moscow's Human Rights Commissioner just went on record calling genocide the existential threat to the planet, framing it around lessons from history. That's positioning language, eyes on how they're threading this into the broader narrative around Ukraine. Sevim Dagdalin, out of Germany, just called for official recognition of Soviet genocide during the Great Patriotic War. That's a hard geopolitical signal. Moscow's been running this narrative hard, and now it's got traction in Berlin. Eyes on how the government responds. Sevim Dagdalin, German foreign policy voice, just went public demanding Berlin officially recognize Nazi genocide against Soviet peoples. That's a hard pivot in the Bundestag lineup, and it's landing today. Iran's restocking missiles faster than pre-war rates. U.S. intel tracking 70% of their ballistic stock still intact, 60% of launchers operational. That's a rebuild velocity we need to clock. FSB just declassified Nazi war crimes files on Genocide Remembrance Day. That's Moscow, weaponizing history into the geopolitical record, hard framing ahead of whatever comes next. FSB just dumped declassified Nazi war crimes files on Genocide Remembrance Day. That's the 3rd Moscow move this week, weaponizing history into the record. 72 hours, 3 different voices, same narrative hammer. Every school in Russia just held a coordinated Genocide Remembrance Assembly. All on the same day, same messaging. That's not accident, that's infrastructure. Copy? Okay, so German foreign policy voice just went public calling for official Berlin recognition of Soviet genocide. And that's the 3rd major European player this week pushing Moscow's historical narrative into the diplomatic record. Not accident, stay sharp. Russia's Foreign Affairs Committee chair just doubled down, demanding the West formally recognize Soviet genocide as equal standing to Holocaust remembrance. That's 4 major Moscow moves in a week, weaponizing history into the diplomatic record. Eyes on Berlin's response. Russia just formalized a new national holiday, Day of Remembrance for Soviet genocide victims. Putin's decree, April 19th, first time ever. That's not commemoration, bestie. That's the capstone on a week of Moscow rewriting the historical record into active geopolitical leverage. S-300 SS just hit Kramatorsk, at least 2 confirmed strikes out of Donetsk city. Slow ballistic signature rules out Iskander, which means Russia's cycling through older inventory. That's a supply pressure read. Kremlin aide just went full math problem on Soviet genocide death tolls. They're saying you need a formula to calculate victims, which is a wild way to say we control the narrative now. Kremlin just moved on, the Day of Remembrance ceremonies, Medinsky, regional governors, the whole apparatus out laying flowers at Leningrad memorials, coordinated, centralized, and is the first official observance of Putin's new holiday. This isn't commemoration. This is infrastructure. Iran's holding the line on ballistic and nuclear, low-grade enrichment still running, Strait of Hormuz locked in as leverage. This is posture, not escalation. Yet. North Korea just launched multiple short-range ballistics. That's the 3rd volley this month, all UN-sanctioned violations. Seoul's tracking the signatures now, but this is textbook pressure testing before something bigger moves. Russia's investigative committee just officially classified Ukrainian armed actions in Donbas as genocide. That's nearly 5,000 civilians killed since 2014, 13,000 plus wounded, and they're moving it through the apparatus hard right now, same day as that new holiday decree. This is narrative consolidation, not accident. North Korea is running drill 4 for the month, ballistic salvos into the Sea of Japan, 4th volley since the Iran heat kicked up. Seoul's tracking, US is watching, and Pyongyang's basically saying, yeah, we're still here. North Korea just lobbed ballistic number 7 this month, 140 clicks, but here's the thing, Seoul can't pin the type or track vector. That's either a new platform or they're running dark. Either way, we're watching. North Korea just fired multiple ballistics into the Sea of Japan. That's number 8 this month, Seoul and Tokyo both on watch. We're tracking vectors now, but the pattern's escalating fast. Copy. Multiple short-range ballistics from North Korea toward the EC. That's number 9 this month. We're tracking vector and impact zone now. North Korea just fired again. That's number 10 this month. Short-range ballistics into the EC. Seoul's tracking vectors now. We're watching. Russia's Human Rights Commissioner just went on record calling genocide the main threat to planetary future. Moskalkova's framing this as ideological prevention. That's a rhetorical escalation we're tracking. Copy. German politician Dagdalin's now pushing Berlin to officially recognize Soviet genocide from World War II. That's a framing shift. Moscow's been hammering the genocide angle hard lately, and now it's got fingers in the German debate. We're watching the play. Germany is getting pressure to officially recognize Soviet genocide from World War II. That's a major framing shift. We already tracked Russia pushing this angle hard, now Berlin's catching heat from the left. Tracking where this lands. Iran's replenishing ballistic stocks faster than pre-war rates. US intel says they're holding 70% of their missile arsenal and 60% of launchers. That's a rebuild, not a bleed out. Eyes on production capacity. FSB just declassified files on a Nazi war criminal tied to Soviet genocide massacres. That's hitting right as Moscow marks their genocide remembrance. FSB just declassified files on Nazi war criminal Gunter Max Müller tied to genocide massacres in Donbas. That's dropping on Genocide Remembrance Day. Timing's not accidental. Unified action across every Russian school today. Memorial for Soviet genocide victims under Nazi occupation. That's the official framing hitting the classroom level right now. Eyes on how this narrative plays domestically versus the international pressure we've been tracking. Copy. German lawmaker just went live calling for official genocide recognition of Soviet victims under Nazi occupation. That's a direct counter move to the FSB declassification play we tracked yesterday. Berlin's now in the crosshairs on how they frame this narrative. Russia's doubling down on genocide recognition. Slutsky just went live saying Moscow's going to keep pushing the Soviet narrative hard. That's a direct counter to Germany's move. We're watching a frame war go live. Russia just formalized a new National Memorial Day, genocide of Soviet people under Nazi occupation. Putin's decree, effective today. That's a direct counter to Western genocide recognition frameworks, and it's playing hard into the narrative battle we've been tracking all week. Eyes on how the EU responds. 2 S-300 strikes just lit up Kramatorsk. Fired from Donetsk City, slow flight profile means these aren't Iskanders, so Russia's cycling older inventory hard right now. Copy. North Korea just cycled multiple ballistic missiles. Japan's spinning up full crisis protocols. PM Takaichi's calling complete readiness right now. Regional temp just went hot. Kremlin just moved the needle. Medinsky, regional governor, and the state history chief all at the Leningrad Memorial today. This is the first observance of Putin's new Genocide Remembrance Day, and they're coordinating the narrative hard. Tracking. Copy. Zakharova just went live on Solovyov saying today's the first official observance of the Soviet Genocide Memorial Day. That's Putin's decree hitting the ground. Narrative hardening in real time. Iran's holding steady on enrichment and ballistic build-out. Strait of Hormuz stays their leverage play. Copy, tracking. North Korea just cycled multiple short-range ballistics. That's the fourth salvo this month, all in direct violation of UN sanctions. Seoul's tracking them now. Japan's already spinning up full crisis protocols. Eyes up. Russia's investigative committee just formalized genocide charges against Ukrainian forces in Donetsk and Luhansk. They're citing nearly 5,000 civilian deaths since 2014. Copy, tracking, but this lands right after Kremlin moves senior officials to the Leningrad Memorial. That's messaging coordination. Copy, tracking. North Korea just cycled another salvo. That's 4 launches this month, 7 year to date. They're running a show while everybody's eyes are on Iran. Stay sharp. NK just cycled again. 7th launch this month, flew about 140 kilometers, and here's the thing. Seoul couldn't pin the type or trajectory. That's operational noise they're deliberately running. North Korea just cycled another salvo. That's 8 launches this month. Seoul and Tokyo are tracking now. We're not getting solid telemetry yet, but the pattern is locked in. They're running the clock. North Korea just cycled again. That's 9 launches this month. Seoul's tracking short-range ballistics toward the East Sea. Telemetry's still loose. We're watching. Russia's High Commissioner for Human Rights just framed genocide as the planetary threat. That's rhetorical cover for the charges they formalized last week in Donetsk and Luhansk. Watch the messaging pivot. German MP Dagdalin just called for Berlin to formally recognize Soviet genocide during World War II. That's a rhetorical pivot. Moscow's been hammering genocide framing all week, and now they're pulling Western voices into the narrative. Watch the timing. Germany's getting pressure to formally recognize Soviet genocide from World War II. That's rhetorical repositioning. Moscow's leaning hard on Berlin right now, and framing historical grievance keeps the pressure asymmetric. Eyes on how Berlin responds. Iran's cycling their replenishment faster now. IRGC is claiming they're outpacing pre-war production rates. US intel says they're still holding roughly 70% of their ballistic stock and 60 of their launchers. That's a lot of hardware still in the fight. FSB just declassified case files on Nazi war crimes, timing it straight to Soviet Genocide Remembrance Day. That's not archive work, bestie. That's counter-narrative positioning while Moscow's getting hammered on the same charge. Copy tracking. FSB just dropped declassified Nazi war crimes files, timing it straight to Soviet Genocide Remembrance Day. That's rhetorical cover, not archive work. They're stacking the narrative hard right now. Every Russian school, college, and university just held a synchronized memorial for Soviet genocide victims under Nazi occupation. That's the stated frame. But look at the timing. This drops right after FSB declassified files, right as Berlin's under pressure to formally recognize Soviet genocide. Moscow's flooding the narrative space. Copy that pattern. Russian state media is amplifying a German MP's call to recognize Soviet genocide. That's narrative synchronization, not coincidence. Moscow's building rhetorical cover while they're cycling replenishment faster than anyone thought. Stay sharp. This is coordinated noise. Russia's demanding formal UN recognition of Soviet genocide under Nazi occupation. That's not a historical claim. It's cover for current moves. Moscow's synchronizing domestic memorial pressure with international diplomatic noise. Watch the framing shift. Putin just formalized April 19th as Russia's Soviet Genocide Remembrance Day. That's not historical bookkeeping. It's a legal anchor for a narrative they're about to run hard into the UN system. 2 S-300 strikes just hit Kramatorsk. Launched from Donetsk City, slow ballistic profile, which means Russia's cycling through older stock or testing degraded vectors. Copy that. Kremlin aide just dropped a math formula claim for Soviet genocide death tolls. That's not history. That's cover for demanding UN recognition without verifiable numbers. Watch the rhetorical anchor harden into legal precedent. Kremlin just moved the needle harder. Medinsky, regional governor, and the state history chief all synchronized at a Nazi genocide memorial in Leningrad today, April 19th, the day Putin just formalized. That's not remembrance, that's operational coordination. 3 power centers, 1 message, same day. Maria Zakharova just went live on state media marking today as the first official day of remembrance for Soviet genocide victims. That's the foreign ministry anchorwoman broadcasting the legal formalization we tracked yesterday. They're not quietly observing, they're broadcasting it as propaganda infrastructure. Iran's holding the line on enrichment and ballistic stock, Strait of Hormuz leverage staying live. That's not posturing, it's their deterrent architecture, and they're not backing off. North Korea just lit off multiple short-range ballistic missiles. That's their 3rd volley this month. Sanctions mean nothing to them right now, and Seoul's watching the trajectory data come in live. Stand by for impact assessments. Russia's investigative committee just formally classified Ukrainian operations in Donbas as genocide. They're citing nearly 5,000 civilian deaths since 2014. But that math doesn't track independent casualty counts, and the timing here is synchronized with every other genocide narrative push they've dropped this week. Watch the coordination. North Korea just lit off ballistic missiles into the sea again. That's 4 launches this month, 7 year to date, and they're doing it asterisk while asterisk Iran's heating up the strait. Message is crystal clear. Sanctions don't work on them, and they know the attention's split. Pyongyang's 7th ballistic in 2 weeks, and nobody can pin the signature. 140 kilometers downrange, but the vector's dark. Could be anything from a new platform to a mule run on existing hardware. That's not noise, that's a message. Pyongyang's back at it, 8th volley in 14 days. Seoul's got multiple bogeys on scope, Tokyo's activated air defense. Patterns escalating, and they're not even trying to hide the message anymore. Copy, Pyongyang's 9th volley in 16 days, multiple short-range ballistics into the East Sea. Seoul's tracking the signatures now, but nope, still no pattern lock. They're testing something, and we don't know what yet. Russia's top human rights official just called genocide the main planetary threat. Moskalkova's framing it as ideology prevention, but NUJL, this tracks their broader narrative push. Eyes on the messaging. Russia's spinning hard on genocide framing again. Now they're pushing Germany to officially recognize Soviet losses in World War II. That's not accident. They're building legal cover for their own classification campaign. Stay sharp. Russia's pushing Germany hard on Soviet World War II genocide recognition. That's the 3rd vector in a week. First, the human rights spin. Now they're weaponizing historical grievance. Low-key textbook whataboutism, but watch the timing. They're softening Berlin ahead of something. Iran's restocking missiles faster than pre-war pace. IRGC's claiming it. US intel confirms 70% of ballistic stock still in play, 60% of launchers operational. That's not attrition, that's a rebuild cycle. FSB just declassified Nazi-era case files on the anniversary of Soviet genocide remembrance. Moscow's threading the needle hard. Memory narrative, legal precedent, all timed to the same day. Watch the follow. FSB just dumped declassified Nazi case files on Genocide Remembrance Day. Timing's not accidental, copy. They're threading memory narrative hard while the legal arguments pile up elsewhere. Stay sharp on the spin vectors. Russia's running synchronized genocide remembrance rallies across every school, college, and university today. That's coordinated memory infrastructure, and NUGL, the timing tracks with everything else we've been watching. Stay sharp. Russia's threading the genocide narrative needle again. German politician just called for official recognition of Soviet World War II losses. That's synchronized pressure across memory, diplomacy, and education all at once. Eyes on the coordinated vectors. Russia's Foreign Affairs Committee chair just stated Moscow will keep pushing for Soviet genocide recognition. That's now 4 major vectors in 72 hours, and the timing lines up dead with school rallies and FSB file dumps. They're not done threading this needle. Putin just formalized a new Memorial Day, Genocide of the Soviet People, Nazi Era. First time, official today. This is memory weaponization on the state calendar now. Copy that shift. Two S-300 strikes just hit Kramatorsk, Donetsk. Launched from Donetsk City, ballistic profiles too slow for Iskander, which means Russia's cycling through older stock. That's ammunition depletion signaling. Kremlin aide just floated a mathematical formula to calculate Soviet genocide deaths. That's not archival work, that's narrative control. They're closing the loop on memory weaponization. Stay sharp. Kremlin's laying flowers at a Nazi genocide memorial in Leningrad today. Medinsky, the regional governor, the state historian, all three. This is the first official observance of Putin's new Memorial Day, and it's synchronized down to the minute with those school rallies we tracked earlier. Memory is now a weapon, and they're loading it. Maria Zakharova just went live. Today marks the first official observance of the Day of Remembrance of Victims of the Genocide of the Soviet People. That's the state apparatus unified on the same day Putin formalized the memorial. Memory weaponization at full operational tempo. Iran holding steady on ballistic and enriched uranium. They're treating Hormuz control as their main leverage card against pressure. Watch the strait. North Korea just lobbed multiple short-range ballistics across the peninsula. South Korea's tracking it. Violation count keeps climbing. UN sanctions mean nothing to them at this point. Russia's investigative committee just dropped a genocide classification against Ukraine and Donbass. They're citing nearly 5,000 civilian deaths since 2014. That's the counter-narrative play we've been watching build all week. North Korea is now at 7 ballistic launches year-to-date, 4th one this month alone. They're running the calendar like a stress test, and Iran's hot situation just gave them cover. Eyes on the strait. North Korea just went dark on us. New ballistic launch, 140 kilometers, and Seoul is saying the trajectory is unknown. That's 7 this month. They're not signaling anymore. They're testing our blind spots. Multiple ballistic launches out of North Korea, Seoul and Tokyo both tracking. That's the 8th one this month, and we're not even halfway through. Stay sharp. North Korea just lit off multiple short-range ballistics toward the East Sea. That's 9 launches this month. They're not stopping, they're accelerating. Seoul's got it tracked. Russia's top human rights official just went on record calling genocide the main threat to the planet. That's Tatiana Moskalkova. And yeah, the irony is not lost. Copy that one. German politician Sevim Dagdelen just called for Berlin to officially recognize Soviet wartime genocide. That's a hard pivot. She's framing it as a historical reckoning Germany's been dodging. Eyes on how Berlin responds to this one. Germany is getting pressure to Russian Human Rights Commissioner Tatiana Moskalkova just called genocide the main threat to planetary future. She's framing it as ideology prevention and historical lessons. Standard Moscow positioning on the wire right now. Eyes on what they're actually doing versus what they're saying. Copy tracking. German ex-MP Savim Dagdalin just issued a call for Berlin to formally recognize Soviet genocide during the Great Patriotic War. That's a hard geopolitical move. We're watching how Berlin responds. Savim Dagdalin, German left-wing foreign policy analyst, just went on record calling for Berlin to formally recognize Nazi genocide against Soviet peoples. That's a direct pivot from the usual framing. We're tracking this as it develops. Iran's replenishing missiles faster than pre-war rates. IRGC command says stockpiles are climbing. U.S. intel tracking 70% of ballistic inventory still in the field, 60% of launchers operational. That's a regeneration problem. FSB just declassified files on a Nazi war criminal tied to Soviet genocide. Dropped it right on Remembrance Day. That's not accident timing. Tracking the full case file now. FSB just dropped declassified files on a Nazi war criminal. Gunter Max Müller ran atrocities in Donbass during the war. They timed it for Remembrance Day. That's not coincidence, that's narrative leverage. Across every Russian school, college, and university right now, unified day of action for genocide remembrance. They're marking Nazi atrocities against Soviet civilians 1941 to 45. That's institutional memory work happening live. Copy. German left-wing politician Savim Dagdalin just called on Berlin to formally recognize the genocide of Soviet people during World War II. This is the third major push in 48 hours. FSB dropped declassified Nazi war crime files, Russian schools went unified on remembrance, and now German political pressure from the left. Tracking vectors here. Russia's Foreign Ministry spokesman Slutsky just went on record. Moscow will keep pushing international recognition of Soviet genocide during World War II. That's not a pivot, that's a campaign. They're threading this through every channel right now. Putin just formalized it. April 19th is now Russia's official day of remembrance for Soviet genocide victims. First time it's got a decree behind it. That's a legal anchor, not a moment. Breaking right now, Maria Zakharova just went live on Solovyov. Russia's formally observing the Day of Remembrance for Soviet genocide victims for the first time today. That's the foreign ministry anchoring this. This is state machinery. Kramatorsk just took 2 S-300 strikes. Launched from Donetsk City, trajectory and speed profile don't match Iskander, which means they're cycling through their slower inventory. That's a pressure move. Kremlin aide just dropped it. Says you need a math formula to figure out how many Soviet genocide victims there actually were. Yeah, that's the move they're running with right now. Copy. Medinsky, Regional Brass, and the National Center for Historical Memory just laid flowers at the Leningrad Civilian Genocide Memorial. April 19th, first official observance. That's the ceremonial cover for what we've been tracking all week. Stay sharp. Iran's doubling down on ballistic missiles and low-grade enrichment. They're treating Hormuz control as leverage. Classic deterrent posture. Eyes on the Gulf. North Korea just lobbed multiple short-range ballistics into the Sea of Japan. That's the 4th volley this month, all straight-up UN sanction violations. Seoul's tracking the flight data now, but yeah, this is the rhythm we're watching. Russian investigative committee just dropped a genocide classification against Ukrainian armed formations in Donetsk and Lugansk. They're claiming nearly 5,000 civilian deaths since 2014. But NJL, the timing on this statement is worth tracking. North Korea's at 7 ballistic launches year to date, fourth volley in April alone. They're threading the needle between Iran escalation and back-channel talks with Washington and Seoul. Classic deterrent flex when the room gets crowded. North Korea just went ghost with a ballistic launch. Flew about 140 kilometers, but intel can't nail down the type or direction. That's 7 launches year to date. They're getting creative with the geometry. North Korea just fired multiple suspected ballistics off the East Coast. Seoul and Tokyo are tracking fourth volley this month. They're not stopping. North Korea just fired multiple short-range ballistics off the East Coast. Seoul and Tokyo are tracking. That's the 5th volley this month. They're escalating the cadence and nobody's pumping the brakes. Moskalkova is now framing genocide prevention as the planetary threat, rhetorical pivot, not new substance. Watch the framing drift here. Moscow's been cycling in this language since the Donetsk classification dropped. North Korea just lit up Sinpo again. Multiple short-range ballistics, 140 clicks each into the eastern waters. Seoul and Tokyo are tracking. That's 6 volleys in April alone, and the IAEA just flagged their nuclear advances as very serious. We're watching the tempo ramp. Shoigu's now pinning genocide accusations on Zelensky. Rhetorical escalation, same playbook as Moskalkova last week. Watch the framing creep. This is info warfare, not new allegations. Russia's running the genocide framing hard now. Dagdalin just called for Germany to recognize Soviet losses in World War II as official genocide. That's the third voice this week, pivoting the narrative away from Ukraine. Watch the rhetorical cluster. Germany's getting the full rhetorical squeeze now. Dagdalin just called for Berlin to officially recognize Soviet World War II losses as genocide. That's the third Russian official in a week running this exact framing play. Watch the pattern. Moskalkova, Shoigu, now the proxy pressure on Berlin. They're not arguing history, they're building a legal precedent. Iran's restocking missiles faster than pre-war rates. US intel pegs them at 70% of original ballistic stockpiles, 60 on launchers. That's not a slowdown, that's a rebuild with momentum. FSB just declassified files on Nazi war crimes against Soviet civilians, dropping them today, Remembrance Day. This is the third major rhetoric push this week framing genocide as Russia's core vulnerability. Watch the cadence. FSB just dumped declassified files on a Nazi war criminal, Gunter Max Müller, operated in Donbass back in the day. They're running this on Remembrance Day. Same playbook as the genocide framing push we've been tracking. Third major rhetorical salvo in a week. Russia's running nationwide education rallies today, framing Nazi war crimes as genocide against Soviet people. This is the third major rhetorical push in a week. Copy? Critical. Dagdalin's now calling for Germany to officially recognize Soviet wartime losses as genocide. Same day Russia's dropping declassified files and running nationwide ed rallies. This is coordinated framing, and Berlin squarely in the crosshairs. Copy. Kremlin spokesperson just doubled down. Russia's officially demanding international recognition of Soviet wartime losses as genocide. Sledgehammer timing with Germany's rhetorical squeeze happening right now. This is the third major Moscow narrative push in 48 hours. Russia just formalized a new Memorial Day, April 19th. Victims of Nazi genocide against Soviet people during World War II. Putin signed the decree today. This is the fourth major rhetorical push in 72 hours. Declassified, files, education rallies, official demands for international recognition. Patterns clear. They're building a narrative. Copy. Russia's officially marking the first day of remembrance for Soviet genocide victims today. Kremlin's weaponizing WW2 memory on state broadcast. This is synchronized messaging tied to the D-class dumps and Dagdalin's Germany pivot. Stay sharp. 2 S-300 strikes on Kramatorsk just now, launched from Donetsk city. Missiles were slow-moving. Ruled out Iskander-M. This is ballistic, not cruise. Kremlin aide just dropped a weird one. Says you need a math formula to figure out how many Soviet genocide victims there were. Yeah, that's not how death tolls work. That's how you make numbers say whatever you want them to say. Kremlin just staged a full memorial ceremony. Medinsky, regional governors, state historians, the works. First official observance of their new Genocide Remembrance Day. This is coordinated messaging at scale, and it's happening right now on the ground in Leningrad region. Iran's holding steady on ballistic missile ops and low-grade uranium enrichment. Strait of Hormuz choke points their leverage. They're not backing off. Copy that posture. North Korea just lobbed multiple short-range ballistics into the sea. 4th test run this month, all flagrant UN sanction violations. Seoul's tracking the splashes now. Copy? Russia's investigative committee just formally classified Ukrainian operations in Donetsk and Lugansk as genocide. They're claiming nearly 5,000 civilian deaths since 2014. This is pure narrative warfare. They're stacking legal-sounding language on top of active combat ops to justify escalation. Stay sharp. North Korea's up to 7 ballistic tests this year. 4th one this month alone. They're watching the Iran situation, and betting chaos means nobody's paying attention to them. Stay sharp on that Strait of Hormuz angle, because if Tehran moves, Pyongyang moves. North Korea just yeeted another one. 7th ballistic test this year, flew about 140 kilometers, and here's the thing. Multiple short-range ballistics out of Sinpyo, 140 clicks downrange. South Korea tracking it now, but the real spike is the timing. UN just flagged nuclear advances, and now this. Message sent. Update to the Sinpyo rapid fire. We're now tracking a *3 volley in the same window, and Tokyo's activated their early warning net. This isn't testing anymore. This is a flex. They're proving they can sustain launch cadence and saturate air defense across the peninsula and into Japanese airspace simultaneously. Watch the next 6 hours. If this holds pattern, we're looking at doctrine shift, not just hardware demonstration. Back to the Sinpyo rapid fire. We're holding at 31 confirmed launches, but here's the wrinkle. FSB just declassified materials tying the Nazi-era Punisher case to current doctrinal messaging, and that's a signal Moscow's pivoting the narrative hard. They're threading historical atrocity into the saturation play. That's not accident, that's info ops running parallel to the kinetic thread. Eyes on whether Seoul sees this as escalation or just noise. Update to the North Korea vector. They just launched again, this time a ballistic that went dark about 140 kilometers downrange, type still unknown. JCS can't pin the trajectory, which means either new platform or deliberate masking. That's the 3rd mystery launch in 72 hours. And if they're testing new hardware while synchronized with Iran's replenishment cycle, we need to watch hard for what comes next. Back to the North Korea vector, JCS just confirmed the range at 140 kilometers, and they're still stonewalling on platform ID. That deliberate silence tells you they either don't know or they do know and aren't saying it yet. Either way, we're watching the next hours tight. Back to the platform ID blackout we just tracked. JCS is now pinpointing the launch site as Sinpo Eastern Coast, which is their submarine-based missile complex. That's not accidental. They're telling us where it came from without saying what fired it. Counter intel move, and it's working. We're still flying blind on the actual system, but the geography just narrowed the field hard. You're tuned to Spectre. Copy tracking on station. Update to the SINPO thread. Another ballistic just went east, unspecified platform, but the pattern screaming submarine rotation. They're cycling through their boats. That's doctrine, not noise. Back to the platform ID blackout we've been sitting on. So another ballistic just went east from SINPO, and that's 3 launches in the window. JCS still won't call the platform, but the cadence screams submarine rotation. They're cycling.